Before this video begins, I would like to give a quick thank you to my Asban Team level patrons Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. It's pretty well known that 2023 is a big year for Doctor Who. After all, I made like a whole video about it at the very end of last year, suggesting that this anniversary year might be Doctor Who's biggest because of just how much is going on. But 9 months into this 60th anniversary, has Doctor Who really lived up to that hype? Has it delivered on all that promise and, the hope? A lot of fans are disappointed about the offerings and celebrations so far. But were expectations too high to begin with because of the 50th anniversary? Well, that's what I wanted to talk about today, since we're roughly 2 months away from the 60th anniversary specials. Obviously there will be spoilers for recent and upcoming content, I feel like that should go without saying, but you never know if people in YouTube comment sections, they're not the most observant. So without any further ado, this is a somewhat measured response to Doctor Who's 60th anniversary, so far. As pretty much everyone is well aware, Doctor Who was created all the way back in 1963, with the very first episode broadcasting on the 23rd of November and starting a legacy that obviously lasts to this day, with the show older than other sci-fi properties like Star Trek, Dune, Star Wars and many others. In fact, it's the third longest running Western fiction show still active today, only behind Coronation Street and the German stop-motion animated show Sandmansion, which has a whopping 22,200 episodes across 61 seasons. Good luck binging that. Doctor Who is a very historic show, so any anniversary is a big deal, marking yet another decade of the show's existence. Its 10th anniversary year was celebrated in style with season 10, especially the landmark story The Three Doctors, which ended the third Doctor's exile on Earth and served as the very first time ever a previous Doctor had returned to the show, bringing together all three incarnations up to that point if, the title hadn't already made that clear. The idea of multi-Doctor stories are nothing special anymore thanks to many different episodes and especially because of Big Finish audios, but this was the very first such story and it was a huge moment for the show. Both William Hartnell and Patrick Troughton returning for an encore performance after having established the show as a juggernaut over the previous 10 years. The Three Doctors has only really been seen as an anniversary special in, kind of retrospect, but it was the first 10-year anniversary and definitely set the precedent of every anniversary to follow. So it definitely achieved its goal of celebrating the show, even if there was nothing else really going on around it. I think the 20th anniversary in 1983 is when it really became a big deal to celebrate a decade of Doctor Who. The 10th anniversary was a pretty low-key event, they just did a little bit more advertising for the landmark season premiere. But 10 years later the show had a lot more history to pull from, with 2 extra Doctors having been introduced during that time period. The 20th anniversary therefore really raised the bar of the huge 5 Doctor special, a feature-length standalone story aired in November 1983. Throughout the year the press was abuzz with articles about Doctor Who's birthday, along with its recent successful launch in America, even leading to a convention in Chicago to celebrate it all. Along with this, there were screenings of 70 episodes at the National Theatre in London, complete with talks from people involved with the show. And it would be remiss of me to not mention the Doctor Who exhibition at Longley, which took place over Easter weekend 1983. This exhibition had first opened 9 years before, but for the 20th anniversary of the show, they threw a big event featuring actors to usher in another season of the exhibition. For a whopping £4 for adults, you could see the sets and monster costumes, have your face painted by the BBC makeup department, and even bid on costumes from the show in an auction. So 1983 was really a big celebration year, obviously culminating in that movie-length special up in the ante from the decade before. The 5 Doctors really threw everything in. 5 incarnations, lots of companions, K9, the Cybermen, the Daleks, the Time Lords. It really celebrated all the major aspects of the show in a big, ambitious way. Establishing Doctor Who's anniversary is a really huge deal and something to look forward to because it was time for a celebration and, crossovers to illustrate all the iconic aspects of the universe. And yet, the 5 Doctors absolutely pales in comparison to 2013's 50th anniversary. This was much like 1983 in many regards. Both years have seen the announcements of the current Doctor leaving the show, and both saw an international media frenzy as it celebrated another anniversary. However, 2013 was absolutely insane with how prominent Doctor Who was. It was absolutely everywhere. There were tie-ins, documentaries, docudramas, events and conventions, mini-sodes, half a series, and 2 incredibly ambitious climactic specials rounding out the year. And it's easy to see why. 50 years is a special milestone because it's halfway to 100. It's the gold anniversary, and there was so much to celebrate. You even had the 5-ish Doctor serving as a bit of a meta tribute to the show's longer history. Hell, there are even the missing episodes announced, a nicely timed coincidence breathing new life into some previously missing stories from the 60s. 2013 was absolutely packed. It was everything you could possibly wish for when it comes to a Doctor Who anniversary year. Even on the smaller end, you had specialised audio dramas and books, a comic special, and many re-releases of media. And of course, Google itself made a whole game as a Google Doodle. So the whole year was a huge celebration, and it culminated in that epic Day of the Doctor special shown in cinemas, seeing the fan favourite 10th Doctor return along with the introduction of the War Doctor, and beloved actor Tom Baker's return to the show too. It was a massive event and a massive episode in a massive year, taking the celebrations to an extreme, much like the 5 Doctors had relatively done all those years before. 2013 took things to a huge level, which is probably why a lot of fans have expected more from the 60th anniversary, because we were almost spoiled for choice last time of how much was happening all in a single year. It was probably like the last time absolutely everyone in the country was either talking about or at least constantly hearing about Doctor Who in a positive light. So, here we are 10 years later. It's the 60th anniversary, and surely Doctor Who has been all over the international news, celebrated another decade of success with more documentaries, tie-ins, books and special events. Right? Well, no, that hasn't exactly been the case. 9 months into 2013, we had already had a number of significant things marking the occasion, but 2023 has been a bit lighter on content. Sure, we've had some nice announcements and the Sonic Screwdriver got released, but that's kind of it. Big Finish has sort of botched its release of the celebratory Once and Future series, and the main thing Doctor Who has done so far is Doomsday. No, not the episode from 2006, this Doomsday.
Hi, I'm Doom. Blame my mother.
Yeah, what we have here is a multimedia event akin to Shadows of the Empire all the way back in 1996, which essentially served as a Star Wars movie without actually making one. It had all the marketing of a film with toys, trading cards, action figures, even a soundtrack, but the main narrative was confined to a novel, a comic and a video game, which also had the same ending as the novel. It was essentially episode 5.5 and fleshed out the universe, bringing interest back to Star Wars ahead of the special editions of the original trilogy. And it definitely worked, creating a lot of buzz and carving out its own legacy as one of the most iconic and successful multi-platform projects of all time. So naturally, it's not a surprise that Doctor Who wanted to follow suit, almost like 20 years later, with Doomsday, which has a very similar driving force of wanting to reinvigorate fans. But they couldn't have gotten it any more wrong. Doomsday tells the story of Doom, one of the universe's deadliest assassins, who isn't very convincing. She now only has 24 hours to live and is trying to track down the Doctor to save her or something. It's still an ongoing story, but absolutely nobody is talking about it. And if they are, it's not exactly in a good light. Why is this? Well, first of all, there's way too much going on. Shadows of the Empire had a load of supplemental material, but as I mentioned, the narrative itself was split across one book, one comic story, and one video game. Much like Doomsday, these centered around a brand new character as he interacted with the existing characters, but Doomsday is composed of 2 YouTube videos, 3 comics, 2 audios, 1 book and 2 in-game events in a pay-to-win mobile game. It's way too much to keep track of, much like Time Lord Victorious, Doctor Who's previous attempt at a big multimedia event. You look at how much media you're going to need to consume to follow the story and you just go, nah, I'm good. I know there's the excuse of everything being pretty standalone so you don't have to own everything, but seeing so many segments of a story immediately drives a lot of potential fans away. It also had a horrific first impression when it came to introducing Doom.
Or maybe I'll go out in flames. A lot of flames.
For all his rights and flaws, being like a discount Han Solo, Dash Rendar was a very likeable character fans could immediately enjoy following across the easily accessible multimedia story. However, Doom was introduced in the worst possible way, with this cringe YouTube video so bad it made people wonder whether it was actually aimed at, toddlers. And sure, Doctor Who is a family show, so maybe it was. But toddlers don't have the money to buy all this crap. No, the people who do are nerds like me. And if you can't get those nerds to care about this project, it's never gonna succeed. As of writing, Doomsday only has 2 more releases to go before it's finished. But like I mentioned, you never really hear anyone talking about it. Doomsday has been a pretty big flop, I think that's safe to say. Much like Time Lord Victorious, it completely misunderstands why Shadows of the Empire was a success and tries to cover way too many markets all at once, along with focusing on an absolutely abysmal OC who doesn't really fit the tone of the narrative she's in. Creating a brand new character to celebrate your show's big anniversary isn't inherently a bad thing. Again, just look at Dash Rendar. He's a popular character, but he doesn't even appear on the cover of Shadows of the Empire book, because they knew he wasn't going to be as marketable as the other characters, so they didn't use him as the central focus. Shadows of the Empire simply featured Dash Rendar as the central character. It wasn't about him as a person. Doomsday, however, is completely different and has Doom as the single main protagonist, the entire focus of the story, and the only one we follow, so it's a bizarre choice for an anniversary event, not incentivizing anyone to care, let alone spend big money on it. And as I mentioned, so far this is our only real 60th anniversary event. It's clear that it was expected to be a much bigger deal than it is, so its immediate failure has left a big void in content. Like, you have actual big media releases there, they just dropped the ball on actually, selling them. It's not like the Destiny of the Doctor series in 2013, which also wasn't received all that well. At least that was audio only, and there were other offerings elsewhere. Doctor Who naively put all of its eggs in the Doomsday basket, so it being dead on arrival kind of ruined the idea of the whole year being a celebration of the show, creating a much different feel than 2013. But like I alluded to earlier, the 50th anniversary is an extra special occasion, explaining why there was such a significant amount of content and celebrations all happening in the whole year. It's far from the norm. You may have noticed that I skipped over the 30th and 40th anniversaries, and that's because I wanted to save them to illustrate a point about how Doctor Who anniversaries will be more often than not. 1993 was Doctor Who's first anniversary after being cancelled, so there wasn't a conventional special episode or serial like before. There had been attempts to make a movie, but those fell through, leaving a pretty low-key celebration with a documentary, a comedic short, and the terrible Dimensions in Time story. That was kind of it, everything else was just pretty much business as usual. There wasn't a big special, there was no convention or special exhibition, and the 40th anniversary was much the same. In May, the BBC released a webcast animated recreation of the abandoned Sharda story, there were some reruns on UK Gold, a Children in Need skit, and another documentary, but again, there was no proper episode. The closest thing to a Doctor Who anniversary story that year was Scream of the Shalka, an online animated continuation of the show, which was then immediately rendered moot by the announcement of Russell T Davies' televised revival. That was Doctor Who's Ruby anniversary, another low-key affair, with the biggest celebrations of the show being its return to TV and a Big Finish audio. And I really think that these two anniversaries show that not every anniversary has to be some big, huge, year-long event with an ambitious special at the end. Sometimes it is just business as usual with a couple of things here and there, celebrated another great 10 years of existence. And look, sure, a big difference between those two anniversaries and the others is that Doctor Who wasn't currently airing during that period, which is part of why things were a bit more low-key. But to that, I'd say that we haven't even got to the 60th anniversary yet, because that's in November, and as of recording it's still September. November has 3 anniversary specials featuring the popular duo of Catherine Tate and David Tennant, and then the following month there's a Christmas special introducing the new Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa. So that's 4 specials all celebrating the show's anniversary in some form or another. And to do some quick maths, 4 is a double of 2. So that's already more televised specials than 2013 had, so just saying. Along with the specials, there's a big orchestral concert planned, and I'm sure there'll be a couple of documentaries to continue the tradition of there at least being one every anniversary. When you look at all this stuff, it's not really a bad anniversary year. It's still more than the first 4 anniversary years. Apart from the misstep of Doomsday not carrying people's attention throughout the year and the hype for long enough, it's been a pretty standard year like usual. The main problem is simply that the audience expectations were too high after an extra special year. And there's also the case of, Doctor Who's actual anniversary being towards the end of the year, which is when things really kick off and get going. You can't expect all the juicy stuff to actually happen so far in advance of the true anniversary, because that's like celebrating your birthday or your wedding anniversary 6 months before the actual date. It just doesn't really make sense, does it? I am only 24 years old. I haven't experienced many Doctor Who anniversaries before, and this is only the second I've properly witnessed after becoming a fan in 2005. Is it easy to judge everything by 2013 standards and look back at years like 1973 and 1983 with a sense of there being more done to celebrate Doctor Who than there actually was? Hindsight is 2020, and Google almost doubles that by making them look like pack years. But if you were to ask anyone who actually lived through them, I'm sure they'd be happy to tell you that 2023 alone probably dwarfs the first 4 anniversaries together. The 60th may not seem like the best anniversary so far because of Once and Future and Doomsday being kind of disappointing appetizers, but they're just that, appetizers. The main course and the dessert are still to come, you just have to wait patiently for them to arrive. And sure, some fans are upset that we don't have a big, grand multi-Doctor story coming our way, but the truth is that there have been more non-anniversary multi-Doctor episodes than anniversary multi-Doctor episodes, so there really doesn't need to be one to actually mark the occasion. Especially because, you know, we literally just had one in the last episode less than a year ago. People expect more because of the previous anniversary, when 2013 was actually extra special for a reason and will always be an outlier. By explaining the offerings of every other anniversary, I hope I've been able to provide that sense of scale and perspective for you, because a year is always longer when you're actually experiencing it, so it seems more barren than it will be in looking back. When I made my previous video about 2023 being one of Doctor Who's biggest years, I never claimed it would be because of the volume of releases or the amount of content. No, I maintained that it's because of what this year represents and what it's setting up. We get 4 brand new episodes starting a whole new era of the show. We've already had some information trickle through, like the Sonic Screwdriver reveal and lots of juicy promo images of the 60th and Series 14 to come, along with a lot more potentially set to be revealed within the next 3 months. 2023 isn't over yet, and we haven't even got to the actual anniversary part of the 60th anniversary. So it's a bit disingenuous to say that it's been a disappointing one because it's not even over yet. So, as they always say in football, trust the process. And I definitely don't rely on that phrase for copium as Man United continue to flounder. They'll come good one day, guys, just you wait. And I'd just like to thank my Asbantium level patrons, Fallon Cortez and Nathan Gibson, my Diamond level patrons, Glenna Clark and Valter, my Platinum level patrons, Maximilian Foreman and Nick's Games, and all my Gold level patrons, Boots, Daniel Shillito, Franz Von AK Line Vortex, Robert Hock, and Tom Azar. Thank you so much for your support.